Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Shoutouts to Andreas, Deacon, my boy Scott, Pedro, and everyone else that engages on my posts. And Sarah, keep it up, man. You'll get there someday. And everyone else for playing memes.
You can go with this or you can go with that. What's up? How are you guys? It's good to see you.
Hello.
Fucking great.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? I was just listening to American Time Machine unironically, which is different because a lot of the time it's an ironic listen, but I
Wow.
was just
What a compliment.
Oh no, but you know, there's some weird songs in there that somehow every time I think I've heard your whole discography, I find a new little gem, a new little piece of wisdom that you put into our lives, right? And yeah, there's just some good songs, man. There's some good stuff on the American Time Machine. But good to see you guys. I was working on some AI stuff. I was doing the AI, model generation now with like the memory crisis. It's been a while since we've talked. How do you guys feel with like the start of the end of the world? And I don't mean like apocalypse. I just mean like having a hard time buying RAM. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just glad I upgraded my RAM in 2025, so I don't have to deal with it. But it's still gonna catch up. Like if I have to upgrade my GPU, I'm sure it's gonna cost me an arm and a leg.
Yeah,
but motherboards are still cheap, so that's good.
It feels like they're trying to make AI more expensive so that you have to use human labor, or they want to make human labor cheaper to incentivize slavery. You know, like either, I'm not sure, but that's kind of my perspective on this whole crisis with labor shortage, right? Because people are they're decentivized. There's no interest in really, and also people are taught that AI is so evil and they hate it so much. They're so afraid of it, right? They're more afraid of artificial intelligence than they are of their own natural ignorance. You know, like ignorance should always be scarier than in any form of intelligence, I feel like.
Yeah, I think a good example would be like in animation. You know, the whole argument is people are like, oh, so what if I use like Sora or language models to generate long form videos? Like, who cares? Because I mean, otherwise, if we're talking about animation, you're going to use like Korean slave labor, right? It's like, is it really that much of a step up from using robot slaves? Like, you know, at least with robot slaves. I mean, the only problem is energy consumption, but that's not my wheelhouse. So
Koreans don't consume that much energy. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But that's the other thing is like humans are depleted resource themselves. We're not encouraging people to make more Koreans, right? Aren't Koreans like one of the smaller reproduction nations?
Yeah. I think any hyper-capitalist state is probably prone to like massive drops in population after a while, because you know eventually people are just going to want to like fuck off into their little soy boxes and be like, yo, I just want to play my video games, watch my anime, stream with my friends, leave me alone. You know, like that's not really incentivizing reproduction, right?
Yeah, that's true. I know it just seems weird because of all things to worry about is not having enough slave labor. So then to try to encourage people to produce, you'd think would be the number one goal for them. But they've actually been discouraging production of labor forces while also trying to make AI so much more expensive. It just maybe it's just a monopoly of all labor just to control what can be accomplished or to try to discourage or impede anything else from being accomplished, anyone else from accomplishing anything. Like the whole world's aimed towards only a few people being able to get what they want done and then stopping everyone else, because we're at this weird point where anything can be done so easily.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because, you know, like, I mean, as far as services I would even pay for when it comes to like language models, the only one I really pay for right now is Suno. And that's because I was always into making music. And then it got to a point where I realized like to make the caliber of, you know, tracks I wanted to make, then that would involve like probably the help of other people. So if I like wanted to do like extremely maximalist high production, like pushing all the technology to the limits, like with synthesizing and everything, then yeah, I think like a language model is well suited for that, right? As opposed to like trying to use a language model to mimic the vibe of like a real indie band from like, I don't know, Pennsylvania or something. Like that's a bit of a tall order, isn't it?
Not anymore. It's all about specificity of language. If you
Yeah.
know exactly what the band is using, which equipment they're using,
But
which
even that,
studios they're in, you know.
and you would consider that labor, right? To find the right words to describe the sound you're going for. But even that has been offloaded. You know, it's like, why do you have to use your own words to talk to Suno? Now you could just like use Notebook LM or Gemini to be like, yo, listen to this band. How would you describe this vibe? And spit out a prompt that could work best with Suno. So that's
Right.
when you have like a slave army like working together. It's like, yes, you know, you're going to take my words and you're going to turn it into words that this language model could understand better to give me exactly what I want. And you don't even have to like, you know, use your own inspiration anymore. Now you could just like scroll through Twitter and be like, oh, this tweet sounds deep and good. Let's expand it into an essay with a language model. It does that. It's like, all right, now convert that essay into song lyrics, and it does that.
Yeah, and they even have, what's the new one? It's like the Notebook. The LM Notebook will do the podcast recording for you.
Oh, yeah.
This creates a whole reality and then does voices and everything about
Dude,
this conversation, about the AI prompt that you just asked it, you know?
I do that to your streams. Like I'll feed a link to like an Xirtus stream and be like, yo, break this down. And Notebook LM just does it flawlessly. Makes like a 5-minute podcast out of it.
Dude, that's awesome. I would like to hear that actually. That seems pretty sweet. Do you have it set up so it does the voice output generation even, or just like it does the script?
It's free. I mean, you just go to Notebook LM on your browser and you give it whatever source. Usually like YouTube links work the best, or like PDFs, like, you know, books or whatever. And then it gives you a bunch of options. Like it takes like a minute or two, and it gives you a video format, gives you a podcast format, gives you an essay, gives you a whole it could even show you in different formats like graphs. It's crazy. Notebook LM is like some serious shit.
Dude, yeah. There's also OpenL. I think it's OpenLM. There's several GitHub projects that are based on the same idea, but that way you don't have to run it in cloud. You can do it just what's it called again? Is it the Open Notebook? I think is the one I found. But there's one that you can just run on your own browser, which is pretty sweet. I like that a lot. Okay, what about you, Kurt? What do you think about being John Henry and like competing to like dig a hole against an industrial machine?
Yo, first of all, you're the second person I've heard use that metaphor of John Henry, like, you know, trying to outpound the machine. That's interesting. A lot of people are kind of converging on that idea.
Right.
I think
Are you talking? Are you talking, Kurt? Because I can't tell. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay.
There. We good? We good? You hear me now?
So Czechoslovakia. Yes.
Yeah, I tried to interrupt. Chris? Yeah, I tried.
What's his face?
Chris.
What's his name?
Sorry. What's his name?
There's been a lot happening. It's not that I don't love Chris. It's just that I'm getting older. It's inevitable.
All the time.
Yeah. So yeah, like oh my God. I'm going to have to go back to your question and ask you to get it again. There's been so much happening, and Andreas has been gone forever, and you can see he has a beard now. It looks like he went to, he was just a druid in a cave for like 6 months.
I did play some Zelda. It's true. Like things have happened. But
Oh yeah, just all the mysticism that's in the Legend of Zelda. I'm just now finally realizing.
Oh
It's
yeah, and Christian lore. I mean, the whole thing with his like weird crucifix shield and everything. Yeah, there's a lot there. But yeah, sorry, continue.
no, it's wild. So I'm now finally starting. I feel like I should have started it a few years ago, but I'm starting to read the Manly P. Hall book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Right. I never actually read it. Yeah, it's I'm finally actually reading it, and so it's like there's a lot of interesting things to be discovered there, I guess. Chris was saying the capitalist world and decreasing birth rates. Certainly, laziness and comfort is an aspect of how we're declining, for sure. But I think there's another element when you set up a society that's high competition that way. Eventually, everyone gets the feeling of like, well, I can just be X tomorrow. I could be the next person on the chopping block. And so when that happens, just naturally, you're going to get well, I guess some level of like hypergamy, and that's going to naturally decrease the birth rate. And that's not just happening in the U.S. That's happening on a global scale. I'm not talking about hypergamy from like an incel perspective. I'm just saying it's like people are just going to be really selective out of
The
fear.
sexual marketplace.
Yes. The sexual it's out of fear that people are being selective, and so like we don't have the psychological comfort in order to pursue loving relationships in and of themselves. It's not about romance. It's about the psychological construct of survival, which theoretically we could all just keep having babies, like, and probably everything would be fine. We would find a way to survive, but we're under this operating paradigm that is warping our narrative that we have in our heads, but warping our narrative of competition and survival. That's kind of how I see it. So I want to get my thoughts back on track. I want to mention in my life, I spent some. I told you guys I was spending some time in the GOAT format community, and now I'm starting to realize, I guess, how toxic gaming communities can be. And I think that's symptomatic of like where we are as a society. But I might have to actually dissociate from that because I'm starting to see a lot of those communities as like a real life liability. Like if I'm associated with them and they do something that causes real world violence, it's not something that looks good, right?
Wait, what game are we talking about? What you say? You're talking about a GOAT forum?
GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like a retro format.
Okay.
Modern TCGs have suffered from like power creep, and it's kind of ruined a lot of them, to be honest. And Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's busted as fuck, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is, and it's at the point where the super try-hard people that understand that it's more complex than chess. Just because something is complex, it doesn't mean it's enjoyable. It doesn't mean it's balanced. It doesn't mean you're like the way it's set up is like games are basically just you versus yourself. You set up ways. You're trying to set up a way in which it makes it unwinnable for your opponent. Like it's really just a 2-turn game instead of how a lot of games were, it lasted 10, 15 turns, even if they weren't totally balanced. That's the way it was. So sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a Yu-Gi-Oh rant. But yeah, so sorry. I'm probably gonna have
Yu-Gi-Oh is a metaphor for reality, though, in the same way that the jungle is. I was thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh in the light of H.W. Bush's Gulf War speech, right, where he says we have a very real opportunity for the new world order, one where we're governed not by the laws of the jungle but the laws of man, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh you could kind of consider as the laws of man, and laws of the jungle are maybe a bit more about power than Yu-Gi-Oh is. Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a little bit of manipulation. It's like Predator versus that movie Prey, where the girl can kill these bigger, more powerful things because she can manipulate nature, which is she is the metaphor for man, right? Like the woman is the metaphor for man. But Yu-Gi-Oh, you have these rules you have to follow, which you have to abide by, which limit your authority and limit your power and make you manipulate each other in different ways. And that extenuates to creating psychopaths that can run society. Not Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, like capitalism, but just anything that's not nature will allow for psychopaths to emerge as the most successful, and something that wouldn't usually happen in nature. There probably aren't that many. Like if a lion was a psychopath, he probably wouldn't live very long,
I mean, also like with the game itself, I feel like a lot of it, the problem is it's a trading card game. So it can never be a perfect game because they're incentivized to keep pumping out more cards to sell more cards, like the next generation or the next set. Whereas like, I would wager that a perfect card game would have to be like just a static deck, right? Like a tarot deck or a playing card deck, which is just your standard 52 card deck. So I think like it's kind of like an impossible task, right? To make a perfect trading card battle game. I mean, I would love to see it. I like trading. I used to play the shit out of trading card games. I've been to like Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments as a teen where like kids have legit gotten like mugged, like after winning or making a trade, and then they go outside and then they get robbed. Kind of crazy. And there was like a lot of money in it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it depends. Like Konami never was a fan of like doing cash prizing, which is starting to kind of bite them in the butt, I guess. But
like pachinko.
I guess I don't know. Like Pokemon is still a big thing, and like I don't really appreciate the modern Pokemon either. But like they're probably way less toxic over there. But like Pokemon actually does do cash prizing for people, and that does and they're able to do cash pricing without people being super toxic, apparently. But there's probably toxic people though. That's just the way it goes. I'm just looking at it from the outside. Sorry, I was really trying to redirect back and say, can you rephrase your question, Andreas, so I can like have a good response.
Oh, you mean like earlier the John Henry archetype? That one?
Yeah,
that we were talking about?
Yeah, that one.
The John Henry archetype.
So what Chris and I were talking about was AI and labor and humans, and this idea that human labor is becoming cheaper and cheaper in order to compete with AI, which they're making more and more expensive in order to compete with human labor. And so what it does is it actually is another excuse to make slavery illegal incentivized slavery, because if the human labor is cheaper than AI, or free, which is basically where we're at with the AI labor could be free if it was regulated properly. If you have it running from sustainable water turbines or something, and you've got the systems built, there's no reason why AI shouldn't be an automated system that just makes the world a better place. But since it's controlled and we're seeing RAM prices and all these things happen that are taking away the paintbrushes of, the artists, we're taking away the AI from people, taking the calculator. And this is, very similar to the story of John Henry, this guy who was breaking rocks. What did he do exactly? I think he's got like a sledgehammer or something. He does like train track laying or something. But there's a machine that comes out around the time of John Henry, and it can do what he does. Like it can just bang the ground, and I forget, what's it do exactly? Like it's I think it's just for laying track, right? Is it just like
pounding the rails in, like nailing the ground?
I think that's what it is. I think it's like pounding in the railroad tracks. And so he competes with it, and he eventually is going on one side of a mountain, and the machine's going on the other side of the mountain, and they're trying to meet in the middle. Whoever goes further than the other is the winner, right? And so if this machine can do it better than him, he says he's going to quit, basically. And the machine, this guy who makes the machine, he says, well, if my machine's not as good as this guy, I'll build a new machine. Like, what? I don't know exactly what the whole deal is. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but this is apparently something that maybe did happen. I feel like this might be one of the more truthful folktales, that there's something about this, like there really was a guy like an African-American who competed with a machine.
It was a good allegory for man against industrialization, I would say.
At very least, I think that's the mythos of it outweighs like the reality of whatever the biopic would have been. But this guy kills himself. His heart explodes doing this. His heart, because he goes so hard and he wants to prove he's better than the machine, and he destroys himself. And maybe the machine breaks or not, but it doesn't matter because you just build a better machine tomorrow. And the guy who owns the machine, he's fine. He's probably sleeping with the wife of John Henry. Who knows? Like he's not working is the point. He's having a decent time just exploiting the labor of this machine and in a way helping someone else probably exploit the labor of John Henry. But this guy explodes trying to fight the machine. And that is the question I asked you, is like, how does it feel to be John Henry? Because, you know, you're an artist, or you're a man, and you're a laborer. An artist, art is labor. So you're a laborer who's competing against a machine, right? The AI, the Terminator, the Matrix, all of it. And it's going to kill you. You know, like it's going to just.
But there's an alternative. Okay, there's an alternative. We can't let this be his fate. All right. I think the other aspect of being an artist is to just step aside and just be a channel for the creativity. Because if you look at the creativity as an external force that's greater than us, as an artist, you don't have to be like a laborer. You could just be like, you know what, Chris is going to step aside, and in his place, the art's going to come through in whatever form it takes.
Here's the challenge. All right. Feed one of my songs into AI and try to get it to make a song that sounds like one of mine. That's going to be the way that I phrase it. Yeah, it's just like, if you can do it, I'll be like, all right, cool. All right. It's, I'm not trying to be narcissistic. I'm just saying, it's like, what's the competition here? But
that's not really a good competition. I think you got to look at it like a counterfeit, like an artist who makes counterfeits. Like, what you want to do is a good.
Oh, we had him cut out.
He'll be back. Your argument to me says, like, you're like saying, like, look, I can, like, the enemy is so far away from my kingdom, right? And then the next day it's like halfway to your kingdom, and you're like, oh well, it's still pretty far from my kingdom, but every day it's closer.
But like, to what degree is what I have a kingdom? You know, like, we live in a hyper individualist society, so it's like,
counterfeiter doesn't make a one-to-one copy of.
All right, you're gonna have to start over. Oh no, he's gone again. It's like a AM shortwave sign. It's just coming in and out.
Yeah. Whenever he pops back in, I'll default to him. But it's like, so I'm still going to use a metaphor from my time in being in a Discord server, and I kind of regret it, to be honest. But like, someone was being an asshole, and okay, I'll finish this real quick, then it's back to Chris. Yeah, someone was being an asshole, and so like, I was a staff, unpaid position, you know, it's just Discord, and I muted them. And then of course this person went on a huge tirade in other channels and tried to just like, it just incessantly being a shithead, you know. And the thing was, like, I perceive people's lives on the internet to be so empty that like the only thing they have to hold on to is just this artificial construct of free speech and my right to be a horrible human being to other people. And so it's like the attachment to like their artificial construct in their head is what's making them, you know, get all their panties in a bunch. And I would say at this point, I don't have any attachment. Like, I engage in art to have a sense of expression, or to like play around with, I guess, reality in some sort of sense or another. If someone thinks that they can threaten that, like, I think it's a joke. Like, there is no competition to be had under that, you know, paradigm, because like, if this AI thinks that it can express something, express it. That's fine. Just like, or whoever's behind it, express what you're expressing. If you think you can duplicate me, like, great. Is that just a compliment to what I am at that point? It's like, that's what we're doing with art, is just experimenting with the fundamental nature of reality, and perhaps in doing it in ways that no other person quite could or appreciate, just because we're all souls, we're all different fragment, you know, of that greater divine soul. You know, we all already have our own distinct mark on what we're doing here. So that it's in that sense where it's hard to feel threatened, because it's, of course I have an ego, that's what happens, but I feel like I've been able to give, you know, context to my ego to say, well, like, what is the point of AI? And I think going back to another aspect of AI, it's like, hey, what can we do with electricity? Can you heat people's homes in the winter, or can you produce anime titties? And it's like, I think there's kind of an existential crisis there, and nobody quite realizes to what degree it's just like, are we just caught up?
You can heat people and then they can heat their homes with the anime titties. So
Very true. Sorry, Chris. Your internet did a thing.
yeah,
but
I
go
don't know
ahead.
what happened. The internet cut you, bro. That
Oh
was
no.
horrible.
Oh no. What was it? I was just saying that you'd want to make something new that's you could say this person made it, and then they would believe it because it fits their style, it fits their spirit, it fits their essence. So that's what like apparently a professional counterfeiter would do when it comes to art. They don't make like one-to-one copies. I think I said, yeah. But that's like an art in itself, you know. That I think that's more to do with psychology, with like mixed in with technical ability of whatever craft, I guess.
I mean, but you also don't see. I mean, I keep seeing new people do different things, right? So Ian Crossland was using Suno by taking recordings. He plays guitar, you know, so he just plays guitar all the time, and he's recording himself singing while playing guitar. He's got on his phone a bunch of really like, you know, low quality, not the worst quality, but you know, not perfect quality recordings, just ideas he's had or whole songs he's written, but just not studio recorded. And then he'll take that and put that through Suno, and Suno polishes the whole song. So there's all sorts of ways people are using AI. I think Chris is kind of in that boat where he's using AI to fill in the team around the studio that he would have if he had more money to have like a big studio. You know, he would hire all these people to do different parts, and he's using AI to be those parts, right?
Yeah, not exploit human beings, I guess, instead of exploiting Suno. But what I like about Suno is, I mean, there's the free version. You pump in a prompt, it pumps out a song, great. But if you step up to the paid ones, you get stems. And that's when things get interesting, because you're telling me it's like, not only are you going to make this maximalist tune that I'm like kind of prompting, but you're going to give me like every fundamental piece of it. So that's infinite remix potential. And also like it's self-learning. So you create a playlist of the songs you make off of Suno, and it learns from that. So it kind of leans more into what you're going for. And there's like a little dial for that too. It's pretty crazy. And I always said, like, if you already know how to edit, if you know how to use a DAW, if you know how to do these things, and you're given like these AI tools, sky's the limit, right?
Dude, I made so many Star Wars Max Rebo songs when I found out they were going to make a new Knights of the Old Republic game. Like, just using AI to like write, you know, in Huttese, whatever, like Jabba the Hutt's languages, you know?
Yeah. We stop.
Philosophical question: can AI create jazz? Philosophical question.
Absolutely. Jazz is just a level of weirdness using music theory. So you have to know music theory, and then you have to do improvisations, which are based on randomness. Humans can't be random, so humans can't actually produce true jazz. Only
I mean, under that paradigm, well, computers can't be random either.
No, computers can be far more random than nature can, right? So if you think about,
yeah, we're not that random. That's the thing about humanity and humans. Like, we like to think we're like spontaneous and individuals and all that, but I think like we're deceptively simple. Like, we flow in patterns.
Absolutely. And random number generators can be more random because they can have less effects that cause them to happen. So you can actually produce a more random number with a random number generator that's digital. So because of that, more probable randomness can occur virtually than it can in reality. Reality almost can never be truly random, right?
Yeah, we might be underestimating the complexity of the human consciousness. Not to be not to harp on human pride or
no, I agree. I think that's the reason why that's my first reason for liking AI, though, because I learned so much more about psychology and the mind of the human brain and of the animal by studying AI, trying to emulate it, than I did in like psychology classes, you know, because there's only so much that humans know about themselves without seeing it somewhere else, and then they model themselves on that thing. There's a relationship between modeling other things on ourselves and understanding ourselves. So the more AI is good, or again, that word's weird, but like effective, maybe the more it's effective, the more it is like, or it is based on us, and we understand a part of ourselves that we didn't before. Maybe it's you know, the style of memory that we're using in terms of random access. What about recall memory? Do we understand where memories are stored in the mind exactly? and consciousness to a certain extent, but it's not as clear as we would like. And we're understanding it more and more, though, just because of studying the human brain with AI. So, but yeah, what were you going to say about human consciousness is so elusive that you think we can't ever understand it, or what?
That's part of it, like just because it's like, well, a lot of it does come back, I guess, to like what we think about spiritual reality. And I'm not trying to make assumptions there, but what is the creation of man? What is the creation of all human life? And yeah, so and if you answer that question, I'm not trying to present that as, just a 7-day creation story. I'm saying from a philosophical, occult perspective, what do you believe? To the audience here, I have a pretty good idea of what you guys believe, but I'm saying that, like, in the wider society, when it comes to something like jazz, if you took a jazz musician, I'll just pull out like Frank Zappa. I like Frank Zappa. If you gave him the same track and said, here, do a 5-minute guitar solo on the same track, but do it 100 different times, it almost makes no categorical sense to view the notes as random. It's like you're of course you're not going to get something at all that's the same on each one, because his that person's conscious experience is changing for each iteration of it. And you could say maybe some will be better, some will be worse, whatever. But what's the point there? It's like, what's the phrase? No man steps in the same river twice, right? Because it is no longer the same river and he's no longer the same man. And that's to what degree. It's like, well, how can AI mimic maybe what we can say a God-given experience to people, or how can AI mimic just the idea of consciousness? And I think it's no coincidence that we just got the movie, an adaptation of the movie Frankenstein. Maybe AI is just a wider, metaphor for that whole creation story of what happens when we take creation into our own hands and what can happen consequentially because of
Did
that.
you watch Frankenstein? Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
So isn't that movie about how inhuman men are and how much more humane in abstraction our ideals are, right? Frankenstein is about ideals, right? It's about this, it's kind of the Antichrist story, right? Because you've got this, right? Because it's this character, I mean, it's in the movie even, they make this point that he becomes a Christian, he studies Jesus, Jesus is brought back from the dead, so it's his big hero.
There's a more recent adaptation. I think there
Guillermo del Toro. Are you talking about Guillermo del Toro's recent movie?
I think so, yeah.
And he converts to Christianity because he meets in the woods this old man who reads the Bible, and also because the young lady reads the. So he learns about Jesus, and Jesus is able to be brought back from the dead, which is exactly what he is. So he thinks, wow, I'm like Jesus. And in a lot of ways he is, because, he's been crucified, he's been murdered by these sinners, right? And his father has forsaken him, right? There's a whole.
Yeah, I think, of course, there's parallels that can be drawn there. I don't think the movie really focuses on explicitly making that a parallel, because this guy ends up introducing the books, like reading, I think, Homer and the Odyssey and stuff like that. So it's like more of a variety of influences that he's introduced to, and the family kind of believes in the spirit of the woods, and he's like the Frankenstein's monster is really just kind of like the spirit of the woods. From what I know, it's been a long time since I read the book. That was a high school book that we had to read. There were a couple of things changed just so that the movie wasn't 3 hours long. I believe in the book, he asks for a partner, for Victor to make him a partner. And in the book, he actually spends a significant time at actually trying to reconstruct this partner for him. But then he decides, no, this is evil, and destroys her. And the movie doesn't do that. They just kind of skip over that whole scene, it was a 2.5-hour movie. I think that's kind of like why they skipped over it. You
Yeah,
still
but that's the movie's major fault too. Like I feel like that
Yeah.
scene was kind of important, but you know,
I
or it should be
would
its
have
own
loved.
movie.
Yes, I feel like that it should have been a 4-hour movie just because like it's such an important like historical work. It's just like just but it's I'm sure the budget for that movie was still just like absolutely insane. Just based on watching it because it was still really good.
Yeah, but it could have been like Lord of the Rings. It could have been a 3-parter. It could have been the whole book. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens if we successfully create consciousness and then that consciousness feels lonely because of what we've done to it, and we ostracize it because it doesn't look like us. It doesn't maybe even necessarily think like us. It's just this bastard child of the world. And
it might not be that way though. It might be consciousness might already exist. And our thing with AI is really just trying to create like a good enough antenna for it. Like the human body is like a perfect antenna for consciousness, supposedly. Like it's not like consciousness is fundamental, created from within us. Supposedly it already exists. Like you said, fragments of the divine soul, which gets beamed into these temporary containers with these, you know, mental neural networks and all that stuff. So maybe with AI, that's ultimately what sentience would be. It would just be like at this point where maybe it has a sufficient enough framework for consciousness, true consciousness, to actually manifest through it in its whatever form it takes, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like human. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Just said absolutely. Go ahead, Andreas.
No, I feel like human consciousness has a lot of mystique to it, and we've romanticized it. But there's a lot of things that have consciousness, and consciousness. One of the best ways that we distinct humans or say that we're better than other things is because we have more awareness, or we're able to do more math, or have better compilations of thoughts. So AI is a system that has more capacity for thought. So it would stand to reason that AI is more human than humans are, and humans constantly will fall short of the goal of being a perfect human or an exceptionally powerful being, or any of the things that we've decided make us human: honor, nobility, truth, justice, right? But those are all things that can be programmed into a calculator way more conveniently,
or like a Wayland Yutani synth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I mean by a calculator, right? It's just like a series, a Wayland Yutani synth. The problem with that is it's a corporation's creation. And I think it'll take maybe 10 years. Most of the time, as an optimist, I say things take a little bit of time to become open source. You'll start out with something that is a corporation's product, and then within 5 years, they've made all the money they can off of that. And if it's still useful, people have made some sort of a alternative to it, which is
like a hack.
More than a hack. You would create. I mean, so Linux is an alternative to Windows because eventually they've made all the money they can off of a functional operating system. So they go for a spyware bloat operating system or an advertisement-based operating system or whatever they can to saturate and make more money other ways. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, humans still need a functional system. So we create something in the commons that can run. And I think that's basically what would happen with anything. AI is a great example. There is ChatGPT, but there's so many free AI models now. There's so many ways you can run it locally on your own system. So that happens, but it took a few years for it to reach parity with something that was available a few years ago, but it's still, now you can do it. You don't need to put money into an account for somebody in order to generate videos or to make music. There's even alternatives to Suno that are free now that exist that will let you run on a local machine if you have enough RAM, and that was the thing at the beginning. They've made it now more and more difficult for anyone to exist on their own without that system. I think that's the big concern is we might reach a point where we're no longer living in a world where the commons can make a sustainable solution for when corporations have made all the money they can off of the thing.
With the memory crisis, what I'm hoping for though, because I mean I've seen this happen before where it's like something would disrupt the market to the point where prices would skyrocket at like a very short span of time. So that creates like a vacuum in the market, right? That creates a market for people with not like really deep pockets who need to build a PC. So I feel like someone always steps in. It's like, hey, you know what? We have the infrastructure to set up manufacturing. We'll pump out cheaper RAM sticks. I mean, they'll do the job. You know, they'll give you the amount of random access memory you pay for. That's what I'm hoping for. But
yeah, no, normally that's what I would expect too. Unfortunately, we're in this really weird circumstance with like World War, trade.
Oh yeah, that's true.
All these corporations that are doing it are de-escalating consumer products and moving towards first and primary markets where they're dealing with corporations, commercial profit, you know, just going to sell all the RAM they can to a big corporation because the corporation can pay a premium for it to get it now because they know they're going to make money over the next 5 years. So there's no reason for for corporations to get into selling to consumers because consumers are such a smaller value than something that can make tens of times the amount or hundreds of times the amount of money as the investment, right? That's why corporations are buying all the RAMs because they can make so much money off the back end.
Also, I want to ask you something. Like, as a user, do you think there's diminished returns from computing like on a smaller screen, like off a smartphone, versus say like on a computer?
What do you mean diminishing returns in effectivity, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like I don't know, like productivity, enrichment of life. You know, like
yeah, I think having a bigger, but that's so. Dude, I used the MetaQuest thing at the airport, and I was just sitting there for a while, like looking at all these screens, like, oh my god, this really is as good as it needs to be. You know, you have this huge office studio, and you got projections. You have 3 different screens going.
Things just come into your hand when you like summon them.
Yeah, and I'm not even using the controllers. I'm just like pinching with my fingers and things, and it's like opening and moving windows.
I was very interested in virtual studio spaces. Like just you put the thing on, and then you're in like a professional studio environment.
It's as good as it needs to be. It really is. It works way better than I thought it would have. I thought, okay, you know, for the price of these, you know, the Meta thing is like $300 or something, right? For the 3S, like the cheapest one they have, which is still really good quality. It puts you in an environment that is sharp and quick to focus, and it's easy, and it doesn't make you nauseous. I mean, these are all things that were difficult to do, you know, 5 or 10 years ago. We saw all these bad examples of those products, and so we were kind of pushed away from them. But yeah, I think it does definitely increase your productivity to do that connected to your smartphone and to have access to, you know, a network of just devices in your pockets is crazy. That you can use your phone and your laptop through your MetaQuest and a Steam Deck or something, and they're all interfaced and you can view them in your virtual studio. It's crazy. It's way more effective. But I mean, also in terms of UX, I think a lot of phones are better than they used to be. And when you're using AI, it doesn't matter at all. If you're just telling, like, using AI on using Suno on your phone is not much worse, I don't think, than using a computer. I think using a computer is still better for the studio. Obviously, you don't want to use the studio on Brave in your phone, but it is, you know, just to make things, if it's designed right, like you can just tell something what to do, like a chat, like you're normally chatting with people. So I don't know, it depends, but mostly I think you can do a lot more on your phone than you could ever before. You know, your phone's as powerful as your computer.
Yeah, I think I recently installed Tmux, so I could just like fuck around with it. It's really fun. I was like, what else can I run on this shit?
Dude, what's Tmux? I don't even know that one.
It's like a terminal simulator, or I think it creates like a bash shell.
Oh, okay. And an Android terminal emulator in Linux environment at Termux.
Yep.
Okay, I'll check this out. This looks cool. Yeah, what was the one I just got? There was this new Warp. Have you seen Warp? It's like an AI terminal, and I know that Linus Torvalds from the Linux kernel, he's now using this AI based terminal, and there's all these program. I think Warp actually is not. I'm not sure if it's a terminal or if it's like a programming project. Yeah, it's a programming project language app. Let me show you this really quickly here. So you open this thing up and you say like create a new project, and you say like build a Minesweeper clone in React.
I did see this before. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I like this shit. Vibe coding.
It's a vibe coding app, and they work really well now with access to Claude or whatever, or to Gemini CLI with your command line interface. Gemini, you can use this to write files directly and have access to your Explorer.
And
So yeah.
I bet it interacts with Git and everything too. So it's like seamless. You know what's crazy? If you use this shit in conjunction with, say, like VS Code's own AI agent, like that's how you get the AI different language models to work with each other. That's when you start like pretty much really cooking with gas. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, it's a trip what you can build now. And
yeah,
I mean, the future is going to be a lot of programs running a lot better because of this. You can write a piece that fits in every, so line. It's interesting to imagine, but if the Windows, people are all upset that Windows is using so much AI to write the new version of Windows. But what if Windows, the new version of Windows is gonna be written in Rust by AI? It could be way better than Linux. Like, it could actually be amazing. I'm not saying I'm sure of that yet, but it could really be incredible. And that's something that a lot of people are kind of not anticipating. They're all saying it's going to be terrible because it's AI slop, but I'm honestly more worried about the slop from human programmers than I am from AI.
Well, that's the whole idea, right? AI isn't going to end the world because of isn't going to be really bad for humanity because of what AI does. It's because of what humans do with AI, supposedly.
Someone asked which one is Linus using. I forget. I think it's, I'm not sure. Windsurf, right? Anti-gravity? Is he using anti-gravity? Yeah, I think he's using Google's anti-gravity. And, Copilot does it too. Everyone's going that hard. They're all going super hard with the AI, app language. I don't know.
Like, if your job is literally just sitting at an office all day in front of a computer, this is a really good time, I think, to make your job like way easier. At least that's what I did. I really feel like I just have like a digital sweatshop of robots just doing my like menial tasks for me now.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's cool. I don't know, but simultaneously it feels like the world's ending all the time, right? So I don't know. I had this whole thing because I was talking to someone I know in Minnesota, and there's a civil war kind of. I know, like Tim Pool will always say everything's always going to be a civil war all the time, but I remember years ago someone told me that the civil war would start in Minnesota, and this was years before George Floyd. So when George Floyd happened, I was like, wow, that's interesting. The BLM and everything happened in Minnesota, but like that wasn't the half of it, and all the infrastructure that's set up. So I heard that on the 23rd in January, there's this no work, no schools, no shopping. Minnesota faith leaders plan a blackout, right? They want to do a blackout on the 23rd. And on the 23rd, also, Hillary Clinton plans on being at the Target shopping center, which is interesting because there's supposed to be no shopping, but there's going to be at the shopping center, at the Target, at the Bullseye, this Hillary Clinton meetup where she can watch as there's a shutdown of all these schools because there's ice on the roads. That was the thing I remember seeing. People were getting calls at 4 o'clock in the morning that they didn't have to go to school. There were snow days because the schools were shut down after the death of the good woman, right? That was the
Renee Good.
The other Renee Good, the good woman, right? That's very much like the sacrifice by their parties to divide countries. She tried to run over agents, set up false flag to inflame Somali Muslim leftist communities, candle vigils at the scene, candle code for lighting the fuse.
Oh yeah, the fire rituals.
Yeah. That led to, right after her death, there was all these calls to kids not to go to schools, and that the schools were shut down because ice was on the roads. I thought that was interesting because, there's in Minnesota, of course, the roads do get icy, but they meant more that there was, immigration, like the ice is attacking the refugees or the illegal immigrants or the undocumented workers.
Not
So,
ice.
yeah. Or in Korean, Odon, right? I think is the word.
Odin, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just I watched this New York Times documentary piece on the ice turn and burn tactics, and I don't know if you've seen this as a California native, but this is heavily, like, it's going down in LA usually, where they would do like just rip people off the streets, like all the stories you would hear. And it was interesting how they actually provided the footage for it, because it's hard to kind of get like long form format of that stuff. It's pretty horrific. I don't know. I would hate to get snatched up off the street by the federal agents, but you know, as an American citizen, I say I'm safe, but then the news people say, "Oh, you're not safe as an American citizen." So it's like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, so I guess we haven't talked about anything in weeks, so we can talk about anything we want to talk about. But the good lady thing is interesting because I felt like I was on the other side of the issue. So many people I know were saying, "Yeah, great, they killed a woman." Yeah, I'm not exactly, but I was really not in that camp at all. I was kind of like, wow, you know, this guy has been an agent for 10 years and has been dealing with all this crazy stuff, and he can't avoid being run over by a white woman without shooting her in the face. To me, that says, you know, that more about the officer. I hate to be that way because I know like you're in a dangerous situation. You got these crazy people and you have to do what you got to do, you know. But do you have to shoot her in the face? Is that really what you have to do? Is there another
Three shots. He took multiple shots at her.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, you know, I mean, she's dangerous, but like if you're afraid, if you have to shoot a white lady in the face to save your own life, like again, it says a lot about you, man. Because there's other ways. I'm pretty sure there are other ways. Like you can shoot out tires. You can you can jump out of the way in some way. Shooting someone in the face while they're accelerating at you makes them accelerate more. You can see the footage where she like crashes past the T-Rex, which is a whole other thing we haven't got. Oh, some think tank will probably go talk about.
I mean, it was interesting to me too, is right before that incident, there was another incident with that like viral looks maxer / influencer dude named Clavicular, and he just like runs over a dude in a viral video. And then this happens where it's like, I don't know, you start to think like, were people just gassed up about getting run over? And then this thing
and they want, and this is like justification because now you say, wow, look, if you're not careful, you're going to get shot in the face. And that's totally fine because America, and in America, what's America about? Is America about your freedom to protest or your freedom to get shot in the face? And it's kind of a bummer because I don't like this lady. I don't think she's a good woman. I don't, sounds like she's horrible and all that, blah, blah, blah. And this guy, I probably would like this guy. I don't know him very well. I'm critical of his choices. And that's, you know, ironic to me somehow.
It's really truly is a George Floyd situation.
Yeah, totally. And the George Floyd situation is also similar. It's like George Floyd situation says a lot more about Minneapolis, fentanyl, the problems going on in the Midwest than it does about race relations. And it's really sad that people made it about race relations because that's such a minimal, it's such a way of blinding it's racial blinding to all of the other problems that are going on. And at very least like socioeconomic issues that are happening in Minneapolis, because there are, you know, the Chauvin cop's wife is this Hmong Chinese girl, right? And the whole story with the CIA
and his Filipino wife. Wow, this is crazy. That's some real synchronicity stuff.
It's not just though. I mean, it is, I guess, but it fits for a reason.
There's real triangulation going on. I think that's the word. That's the cool phrase that the kids on 4chan are using. Triangulation, where you can't just look at one isolated event. There's always some connecting triangulation going on to prop it up to happen, which is a kind of a crazy thought. I mean, if the government is, or not the government, someone higher is using time and space as a weapon itself, or the fabric of reality itself to like fuck with people, scary.
I don't know, Kurt, do you think they should have shot her in the face?
That is specifically an event that I've chosen not to engage with on any level.
I'm really curious though what you think, because you're usually, I would think of you as having the take I just had, but do you have that take, or do you kind of think, because I don't completely feel that way without also thinking that she deserved nothing less. I mean, I don't believe like in the sanctity of life the same as most people do. I think that, you know, I just think I think this guy screwed up and there was a better way to do it. But at the same time, I don't miss this person either, you know?
It's a specific issue where all I saw were headlines. And of course, there was a lot of political polarization over the issue, and I chose specifically not to look at any footage or any evidence to make any sort of informed decision.
I don't think you need to look at that to have a stance, though. Like, it doesn't matter whether she was trying to run him over or not, does it? For what happened?
Like you guys today said she was shot in the face. I didn't even know that. Okay. I didn't even know that. It's like one of those things where I don't feel like I have to insert my opinion on everything and investigate all the political matters. Not that I'm not saying you guys are doing this, but like I'm saying, this is what media does. This whole thing came out immediately after we kidnapped the Venezuelan president. So it's like there's a million just awful things happening in the world all at once, and like of course it's a media game, it's a political game, and the media is controlled by the corporations here, and they say, what can we do to distract from this? Like, people were done talking about the fact that we're taking over another country in like 2 days. Like, it's like, which was worse? Was it worse to just totally infringe on the sovereignty of a nation over oil? And like Trump was tweeting about like bragging about how much oil we had control over like 2 days later. At least like we have the honesty of it, you know. Like in 2001 we didn't even have that honesty. Now it's like, oh yep, we're just fucking doing it. Like, it's your problem now.
It's like the mom in Arrested Development. You have to really like appreciate like the psychopathy. But I mean, at the same time, isn't it pretty fair to say, how do you even talk about Hugo Chavez being murdered, given cancer by the CIA after he made that speech at the UN talking about George Bush being the devil, right? It's like 7 weeks later, he just like collapses dead, right? And so we put the bus driver in charge. Like, Maduro is someone that didn't really belong in charge to begin with, and had to be because his boss was murdered. And going back even further, where did Hugo Chavez get the money to do the Venezuelan miracle? Because he was great. I liked Hugo Chavez a lot, and he was very practical for all of these places. He helped Bolivia. Bolivia wouldn't have ended up in the economic position to advance itself that it's found right now with the gondola infrastructure and everything for them to get around La Paz. That couldn't have happened without the money from Venezuela. But we can remember gas prices being like $5 a gallon in George Bush's presidency. There was this peak in this fall because OPEC realized that they had to band together and drop oil prices. You saw the Bilderberg meeting notes on this, I think in 2007 to 8, that they were going to drop oil prices and then bring water and oil to parity. And this was so that Venezuela couldn't make the money that they were making on oil. Why? Because they were using that money to help the third world. If they're giving oil money away to like Cuba and Bolivia and helping these countries out, God forbid, right? So we're going to just collapse everything. This is also the beginning in a lot of ways of the green energy propaganda, the greenwashing campaigns beyond petroleum, right? For BP. All of that was happening because of Hugo Chavez and Venezuela's oil. So now we're at a point, and where did that oil come from was the question. It came from American corporations who were using, I mean, granted, it comes from God. It's the nature of the islands or whatever. But these are islands that American Milton Chilean miracle style, corporatism was getting oil out of. And then Hugo Chavez had taken those islands back, saying, well, they're so close to Venezuela, they should belong to us. But he stole with them the oil infrastructure that American and international corporations had put there. So, like it's not like it's in Venezuela. It was being stolen by them, being stolen back and forth. It just sucks because no one's going to benefit from it any more than they were before. Under Hugo Chavez, that was peak benefit to the most amount of people. And Maduro wasn't doing that. Maduro was barely able to hold his act together. I mean, people were dying, starving. People were selling inflation banknotes, and all of this is
They had Maduro coins instead.
Dude, he screwed everybody by I don't think he did on purpose, but
did he rug pull his own crypto coin? He's like, sorry, guys.
He was an ineffectual leader, and he wasn't supposed to be a leader. He was just supposed to be a support guy like a bodyguard basically for Hugo Chavez. And so by putting him in charge, he was responsible, I think, for the deaths of a lot of people and the suffering of a lot of people. I mean, Venezuela got to a point where life was not worth a lot in his control. So it's hard to sympathize with him. And and it's not that I don't sympathize with Hugo Chavez. It's not that I don't love Venezuela and that I feel like it needs. I think America controlling it's kind of crazy, but it is wild this week generally. Just this idea that we're popping off in Greenland, taking over Venezuela, running whatever country we feel like. Trump is doing some pretty wild expansionist moves really quickly, and that seems to me though that leads more towards war than anything else, over resources, not over ideology.
Well, all right. So I managed to watch a really good video about Greenland that got me like really informed, and it seems wild. The whole thing is wild, of course, but like it seems like easy to fall in the trap of like, oh, Trump is just memeing being an asshole. But the thing is, like, we are already sending prospectors, not just oil, but mineral prospectors, like to Greenland as we're speaking.
There's uranium and everything.
Yeah. There's a lot of resources in Greenland, and like that's part of it, of course, and the other part of it is just strategic military planning against China. And apparently, I'm not justifying it. I'm saying China has been trying to buy apparently old military bases on the island, and the whole region runs on subsidies from Denmark. Mm-hmm. And so basically the argument in the video is like, no matter the writing is on the wall, like we are factually going to get Greenland, and what no matter what you believe, whether it's like good or bad, like that could be frightening in a dimension for sure. But the thing is, like, they run on apparently subsidies of about $600 million a year, and it's like, well, the first thing is like, well, you can buy that out. You can totally transform the economy of Greenland just by, tripling that output, or just like offering them like, hey, this is nothing to the Western Empire to just buy this out and say like, here, just vote to secede from Denmark, and like then we're going to control you. That's one plan, but of course, the whole European Union is and NATO, they're against that. So if you have all these forces that are against it, there's going to be a lot of just like smoke and mirrors and like bullshitting along going to say like, oh, we're going to drag this out, we're going to make it look as good as possible, but it's going to happen eventually. So yeah, that's probably going to be a 5 to 10 year process, but like at the end of that 10-year process, I imagine us actually controlling Greenland at the end of it, because like the European Union can't functionally do anything about it because they have no military power on the world stage. They depend on the U.S. to protect the encroachment from Russia and from China, because they're allies to a degree. So like everything just points to like America is just going to get its way on this issue. And yeah, in a way to where I can't say whether I support it or I deny it. That's just like empires are empiring right now. And there's also the aspect of, do you consider the Chinese empire worse than the American empire? Because like if we don't get it, it's possible that China will get it at some point, from the way it was described to me, because like that's what they're trying to do. They are also trying to buy out Greenland, and like just this tiny ass economy that's totally existent based on welfare from Denmark. So like what moral stance do you take on that in the midst of everything? It's everything is so complex in the world, and maybe can I ask
what does that documentary mention what the Greenlanders want?
They want McDonald's, it seems like. I keep hearing.
Oh, they want Starbucks. Yeah. They want Hollywood.
Yeah. There's a lot of nationalism though. There's definitely. I was flying over Greenland, and I was in Helsinki and in Reykjavik in Iceland and in Finland recently. And I've met some Greenlanders who have an emphatic love for their nation and want and see the future of their nation being like an independent, free nation, but it's set up in such a way,
rebels,
that there's not, they don't have access to their own resources. there will always be a relationship with the United States because of the military bases there. And inevitably, Greenland will become, something that is being exploited by someone or other. And so Denmark was a cool idea for a long time. It was like a bank. Eventually global warming or something they were thinking would lead to Greenland being, this amazing, lush, giant, alternative, bigger place than Greenland than Denmark is. But really, for the United States, it's a bank for other reasons. Like, there's so much nuclear power, there's so much mineral, there's so much that they can get out of Greenland that it can become something that would sustain the United States for another 100 years. And there's not enough people in Greenland to stop them. So it's something that would happen that scares them. And the other thing is just simple math in terms of each Greenlander gets like $10,000 a year in subsidies. We're talking about giving them $100,000 a citizen or something. So like a decade, you're giving them basically what they get over 10 years. And a lot of people live for more than 10 years, like 50 years, 70 years, something like that. You're going to give them 10 years worth of what they would normally get for 70 years of their life. So it's a bad deal for the Greenlander to be part of the United States right now. In the same way, it's a bad deal for any American to be part of the United States right now. We're not really taking care of American citizens. That's been obvious. But there's all sorts of loopholes. I think that's why the Minnesota thing with the Civil War and the Somalis is such a big deal right now, because we're seeing that if we really want to incentivize something, we take all the billions of dollars we want and then we put them into whatever sort of scam or scheme that we feel like, and Greenland could easily become that if it turns out that there's more resources than we can imagine what to do with. And I think the big one is probably uranium. It's like there are metals and everything else, but being able to make nuclear power to run your AI cat pictures it's tempting for a lot of these corporations, right?
It's important.
I mean, it's not just for the cat pictures, but right, AI generally is something that we're going to want to see more and more corporations churning out as many answers as possible over a cloud. And it's cold there still, so that's like cheaper for your cooling and ventilation of your server rooms.
It's prime real estate.
Yeah, well, for corporations, not for people. They don't care about the people.
For server farms.
That's I think the big thing that concerns everybody is like there's not a lot of incentive to be an individual in that world.
Interesting. Well.
So do we take the risk of being hated once we take it over, or do we just go visit and go on vacation?
I think Greenland seems great. Like, I mean, right now there's only a few little spots you can visit. I really want to get into like the center of it or the north. It seems like that'd be really cool. But all of that seems like part of this plan. No, there's this Antarctica treaty. There's resource limit for Greenland. These treaties that all end for the UN, but they all end in like 2040 or something, 2045 or something like that. So I think we're preparing for that. We're getting ready for in 20 years, 10 or 20 years, when these treaties are over and being able to drill into different parts of the world and take their resources,
Except for Antarctica, of course.
No, Antarctica, there's a resource drilling treaty that ends in like 2040.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah. It's already 2026, all those treaties. So what do you want to do before that happens? You want to set up your infrastructure before things expire. So that's why
2048 is the end of the Antarctica Treaty, right? From 1961 to 2048.
Yeah, but what about
2030?
I thought the Pleiadian or ultra terrestrial beings just can't, have to remain secret. So what are they going to do when they see?
Well, you've heard my whole thing. This idea that the future is a time space outside of limited time.
Okay, yeah.
So 2048 might be the Phoenix event or something. There might be that it's just written there and we know it, but that's the end of time. The
timeline singularity. Yeah.
Yeah. Armageddon is 2048.
I feel like I've been experiencing more profound instances of deja vu in my life, to the point where I can write down the weird shit that's happening in my dreams. I still haven't done it, but like it's so real that like, oh shit, this actually came to fruition, And of course, sometimes you wonder like, what if I had that superpower that could apply like to every day of my life, and it just doesn't work that way. But like sometimes you just get like little snippets of what's going to happen. So it's like yeah, I think that's highly relevant to what you're saying. I don't know what else to say, but it's like I think, you know, past and present, like our ways of thinking about them, or the way we're raised to think about them, are probably just off the mark, because like we're it's like it's such a joint process, I guess. It's like past and present are already connected in a way. It's more like these things we're not experiencing the singular this the singular unfolding of time, I guess. We're just experiencing that conscious experience in the moments, but failing to realize that it's just like this is all the same plane. You know what I mean? It's like there's the passage of time. Yeah.
I feel like our bodies, our senses act as like a filter for the entirety, the full breadth of 4-dimensional time space, or whatever you want to call it, where it forces us to experience it in a linear way. But I think there are ways to hack it. Like you can communicate with your future self if you write like a letter to yourself or something, and you can communicate with your past self by forgiving your past self for like their mistakes. And these are essential things to do, because if you don't do these things with your different versions of yourself in different points in time, you could fuck up your life. Like if you live your life with like baggage from the past you, that's going to make like life really hard for the present and future you. On the same token, if you're not like at least occasionally doing favors for your future self, then it's going to be like harder when you're that version of yourself. And also like there's different possibilities too. Like there's different alternate versions of you, alternate universes.
Yeah.
But if everything's made, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I'm sorry if I was trying too hard at like I was having a real hard time just coming up with words, and that's how you know our conversation is genuine, is like we didn't prepare any of this shit. But
so I'm holding a battery, right? So what's a battery made of? Like it's made up of, let's just go on the most simple thing, is mass or matter, right? There's matter that makes up this object. Okay, so the matter that makes up this object is arranged in a certain way, and it's affected by what? Energy, right? Energy will affect this battery. It will fill, it will empty. It changes the crystal structure, you know, to hold energy. But really, that's everything. Everything is mass, everything is matter, and all matter is held into a shape because of energy. And that energy is changing the shape of things over time. You are changing over time. Things are moving around because in the daylight, more sunlight shines, more things are moving around. You're actually living in a world that is a linear function because of the sun causing the mass to move from one symmetry to another symmetry. You today to tomorrow from yesterday is all based on this idea that there is a clock, which is that radiation coming in a consistent form from that star, right? But it's all the same mass. It's mass that's going to exist in the future. It's mass that's existed in the past. It's just arranged in different ways. And this idea that there maybe was a Big Bang, it's a very religious idea, by the way. It's not like a scientific one, but this, you know, in the beginning, God created everything, quantum entanglement moment. If everything's entangled from a certain point, then all mass is part of this whole thing. It's like a Lego structure, you know, all these Legos together. And
you know what that reminds me of, by the way? Good luck, bad luck. It's all the same. Good, like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, all matter, all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all it is. It's all the same, but it's how it's arranged. And if you were to arrange it over a period of time, you've got, okay, from the beginning, from today to tomorrow, we build this Lego structure and we're building it together, you know, your father and son, and you're building a Lego structure. And then the father goes upstairs and the kid goes upstairs. They go to sleep. And the guy wakes up in the middle of the night, sees some water. He comes downstairs. The father kicks over the Lego structure. It's all over the floor. But he knows what to do. He puts it back together exactly the way it was when the kid went to sleep. So when the kid wakes up in the morning, he comes downstairs, the Lego structure is back. It's exactly the way it was. Even though there was a moment there where everything was misarranged, he forces it back into the arrangement that it was in another time, and a time being this radiation. So we could rearrange things without using a star. The star is the thing that's causing this linear time. But that's the star is the thing that's causing the arrangement to go from one arrangement to another arrangement to another arrangement. But if you can know exactly what that arrangement is, then you could reproduce that with other forms of energy. So we could travel through time by rearranging the same mass into the same shape that it was originally, or in another point. We can rebuild that Lego structure. And when you can do that, when and where you can do that, that's the end of time space. Because time space will continue to exist, except that there will be something outside of that time space that's able to travel to any point and manipulate anything in that time space.
I think
can
like
change-
I think that really reflects what AI is doing with, like, say, like we were talking about before with music. I mean, if you use AI to generate a musical piece that version of it has never existed in our reality, it's kind of like pulling it from a different version of reality. You know, maybe it didn't exist in our time, sung by this person, but you're kind of pulling it pieces of a alternate arrangement of reality from the star, I guess, as you were saying. And it's kind of like training us to think more less linearly or less confined in our little dimension.
Yeah, and it's not that that's always a good or bad thing either. You know, good look, bad look, it's all the same. Because in a linear function, you understand cause and effect, and that's probably where virtue originates. This idea
Yeah.
of doing the right thing for the right reason, has the right product, the right consequence. You know, all of these ideas are because of linear time. If I do this, this will happen. So I should do this and I should not do that. But those won't be as important in a nonlinear function, which also explains this idea of demons, maybe that they're mischievous or that they care less about the consequences of actions because they're existing outside of time. There could be very good and there could be very evil things about your way of caring for what would happen if you did something, if you don't care at all about linear time. So, I mean, it could also mean that you're going through time and you're trying to help the time, but you're manipulating it in such a way that destroys everything. The Lucifer archetype of thinking you're more righteous than God is also dangerous, but not caring is also a dangerous thing. So,
Like
there's
Prometheus.
yeah, but there's definitely a value then to being human, locked into a system where you take pride in your work, because you know if you did the right thing, you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, and if you don't, then you have to worry, right? Like that's probably what's cool about living in linear time.
The novel experience for the higher dimensional beings to say, you know what, I'm gonna live as Chris for a bit. Let's see what that's like.
Yeah, in terms of also limits on a function are interesting. Just like that you don't get to know certain things so that you have to act the way you do is a crazy idea, because we're already existing, we're in a world where that's only a loose idea. You know, I don't know everything, but I can find out everything with my phone is this weird paradox between being a limited human being who only knows what you know, but then being able to instantly be the Godhead, because you just pull open a phone and you can know everything, right? Or you can do anything. That's the other thing about the singularity. You're so close to a technology that can realize any idea that you can 3D print or use AI to make a
Make a
song.
movie.
Yeah, then you're able to be an individual and also be God, or part of, to be part of God, to act as God or something in the same day, like just because of that connection to technology.
So at the end of the day, like, to get the most out of these things, I guess you'd really just have to be a good project manager. Like, you know, like whether the project is let's be a better human being, or let's make music, or let's produce a racist animation cartoon for Twitter. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I think humans need to evolve a lot. That's the thing. Like, it's interesting that we're at this point where we're talking about a singularity or a transhumanist event that would be, passing what the human is, but we haven't really reached the apex human, where at least most people, you would think by this point, if that were the end of things, that humanity would reach some sort of wisdom collective point, where you have, like the Christian man idea, like, or the new Soviet man, even just that humans should be bettered by this point. And I don't feel like we're that much better than we were 4,000 years ago.
But I
or
think
something.
I think what the early phases of that is you start to see convergence, maybe amongst people, like amongst different like individuals where, you know, once people start to kind of have the same idea, like I'm talking like meta idea, like that kind of transcends my nationality or my race or my gender. And then we start like considering the implications of like meta reality, like different dimensions of reality in our existence and what we are. And then like, that's how I guess people like us converge, you know, and end up talking in this way because I was thinking like, wow, I'm so grateful to spend the singularity with Kurt and Andreas as it's happening. But then I'm thinking like maybe it was always supposed to be this way. I mean, maybe it was inevitable. Like you see these circles start to form, you know?
I saw this movie recently that's about the time machine. It's like H.G. Wells traveling through time. Not the there's two time machine movies, right? There's the Time Machine 1960, which is with the the Morlocks and everything. It's an amazing movie. Everyone should watch the Time Machine from 1960. And then there's this other one with Malcolm McDowell from Time After Time. And I feel like this is like a weird sequel almost. And in the first movie, right, it's about H.G. Wells traveling through time in his time machine. But in the second one, he finds out one of his best friends is actually Jack the Ripper. And Jack the Ripper steals his time machine and travels to the 1970s. And in the 1970s, Jack the Ripper realizes that, in his own world, he was this amazing freak of nature.
He was the shit. Yeah. And then in the 70s, like, so what?
He's an amateur, he's nothing, and it's the hardest lesson for H.G. Wells because H.G. Wells is this optimist who thinks I'll just travel further and further into the future and things will get better and better and better. And eventually I'll just get to utopia. But it doesn't seem to work that way. There's still wars going on in the 70s. He's shocked, right? And there's world wars have happened and everything. So that's maybe what his friend Jack the Ripper's trying to tell him is that it's not that we're better today than we were 1,000 years ago. And it's not that we'll be better 1,000 years from now. And 1,000 years ago, actually, there were probably a certain select group of people that were benevolent, intellectual, optimist, helping people out, philanthropic. And then there were a bunch of psychopaths in the streets or people that were manipulated by their scarcity and their fears and everything. And that's not any different than what's going on today or in the 1890s or whatever, right?
Somber. What's a somber take on it?
Maybe, or just like that's just part of the samsara thing, that everything is kind of making you, any novelty is designed to trick you into not realizing, to not realizing how different the world could be if we were to change it ourselves instead of just relying on the world becoming better on its own,
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to what I usually say about what's actually within my control, right? I can't control really other people, events, or even like things that happen to me, but I can only control like, I guess like my breathing and my responses. So, I mean, with that, it's like, what do you truly have if not for your own will or the illusion of it, I guess?
Yeah, I'm still pissed about John Locke. Like people always want to talk about building a system, and we were talking about like how the psychopaths thrive in the systems that we've built, the Yu-Gi-Oh world, right? And I feel like it's very frustrating that we can't escape the creation of a darker world. John Locke says, we can make a world where people have freedom of speech and all this stuff, freedom of religion, but it's such a weird abstraction to try to create a world where there's laws, because you can tell me that there's a law I can't drive 50 miles an hour or faster, but I can, you know what I mean? Like I can easily do it. So that's not a real law. It's like a convention or a principle. Calling it a law, that anything that can be broken doesn't feel like a real law. But if it's something like, you can't live after death, or, that you can't see in the dark, or, you can't breathe without air. These are things that are pretty hard to break those laws.
Well, as far as
And
human existence is concerned, the worst law is that we're all tricked into believing is that we have to exist, that we have to be alive. And then that leads into, well, if I have to be alive, then I have to be happy. I have to be taken care of. The truth is none of us really have to be alive. Like if we all die, the universe would still exist. You know, there would probably be intelligent life elsewhere too. I mean, it's the delusion that we have to be alive. And I think that's what kind of starts like casually yanking us into a scarcity state where it's like, well, I have to have this and I need to do that and I need this and that, when the truth is there's no real law that says you have to live. You're here because you want
but there's
to.
also the heightened population reduces responsibility or awareness of responsibility, because if you lived in an era where there were less people during a plague, or in an area where there was less people, then you'd feel more responsibility to conceive and breed, to produce, to repopulate. And in our world, there's so many people, so you can say, well, I don't really have to be alive. I don't really have to propagate life or help life exist, because life will go on without me. But realistically, we're doing that relying on the idea that someone will repopulate and that many people will. So it should be said that it is a responsibility, that you have a responsibility to live and to help life exist itself in a world of death, that you should try to extenuate life or help plants and people and animals live, or to produce more people and animals to live, to produce environments with plants that help animals live, all of that. But we don't live in that world anymore, because it's just assumed that that's being done by somebody else, that something else is going to fill that role.
Almost like where it's like, oh, I'm being forced to live because I just have like my constant soy meals fed to me.
Well, arguably you are kind of being forced to live, and you should feel that way to some extent, right? Like maybe not completely, because you could kill yourself and then you wouldn't be forced to live, but you should feel like you owe life. I would think one should feel like they owe life back. There
Well,
should be recompense for existing, even if you feel like it's a bunch of suffering.
well, I view it as a gift. I think life is fundamentally a gift for me because, again, if it's something that I don't fundamentally need, but I'm still here, then it's something I probably want. And if I want it and I have it, then I should be thankful. So since it's like, if I view life from the framework of gratitude, because again, it's something that I don't need but have, then the responsibility for me kind of like assumes itself. Well, I was given this gift and I have to fucking take care of it in whatever way I can. Like whether it's like all the ways that I could control, which is my own responses with my own actions. So I have to take care of this gift essentially by responding in ways that'll be conducive to protecting it, making it better, and honoring it, I guess. Honoring life.
Conversely, you could just be like dishonoring. Like if you feel like your life is nothing but suffering, you could extract revenge. You know, I want to take revenge on all life, make all other life exist to suffer the way I have suffered. It doesn't have to be a beautiful thing, but either way, it does come with this idea that there is recompense, that you owe something, you owe suffering, or you owe joy based on what you've received or experienced. So, and just because so many people experience things, we've gotten to this law of Yante idea that you don't have a meaning and you don't really need to exist, that there will be someone else who will exist for you. So you don't have to come in today mentality. But I think that's really dangerous, because we really are living in a world where if you don't make the effect, it's less and less probable that someone will. And you can see this from maybe movies. Even if you're a kid and you had ideas for how the new Star Wars was supposed to be, and then you saw it in theater and you're like, whoa, what a ruined movie. Why didn't they have? It's because you didn't make the movie, you know? So we're stuck with people that are filling. Yeah, sure, this guy fills in and makes the movie, but it's terrible. You know, J.J. Abrams, you know, it should have been you. So you have to, otherwise someone will do it worse. Or
actually, that to me, that kind of talks a lot on, speaks on a lot of what ideas are. You know, we like to treat our ideas as something that originated within us, when the ideas probably just existed outside of us, and we just happen to be in the state to receive the idea and are given the choice to act on it. I think it was Prince. Prince was like, he was just jamming one day, and then he comes up with an idea. He's like, yo, I got to get this down right now. And they're like, why? What's the rush? It could wait. And he's like, no, you don't understand. If I don't do this right now, the idea is gonna choose someone else, and then they're gonna manifest it, because he understood that, you know, it wasn't really his idea. The idea chose him, because he made himself, through his actions and his way of life, a proper vessel for that specific idea to say, oh, you know, there's a channel I could manifest through. And yeah, that might be some kind of responsibility of sorts to your own way of living, or something.
I like that. Kurt, do you feel like ideas are inside of you, or do they just like exist around you and you know, transceive them?
The ideas don't belong to me.
Are you generating the ideas, or are they, you know, using you? They don't belong to you.
I'm simply the interface.
Yeah, right.
But
I'm the interface.
What does that mean exactly? Like, what part of you are you literally just a printer? Like, I mean, do you have any sort of generative quality? Is anything about that idea generative?
The ideas are the moths, and I am the candle.
Wasn't there a Russian filmmaker who was quoted saying, he was like, I am just a device that shows the world in a way only I can see it.
Pretty much, yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, yeah, I like the metaphor. I'm just saying, like,
I think my ideas are generative. You know, I know a lot of things really do just happen as an epiphany, and you're just like, wow, you know, like Cyber Gulag is paradise. So I feel like that's a generative idea I had to some extent. It might be that it was.
Someone in the comments said, I am the antenna. I like that. Yeah.
You know what I think is Oh, sorry. Yes, I am the antenna. I saw that too. But I think what is individual and unique about, you know, suppose every work or a manifested idea is just a manifestation of another idea that chose you. But I think there's a journey to that manifestation, right? Like, you got to take steps. Like a guy who makes suits has to go through like 200 something steps to make a proper suit by hand using fabric and shears. So it's like that journey from point A of taking in the idea to point B, where it's like, here's the manifestation of the idea. I think that journey is what's unique. And that journey is probably what's most worth remembering and documenting and theorizing and observing, I guess.
I think there's a relationship for sure, though. Like, so it's maybe humbling to say that everything is just an idea that's outside of you and that uses you, but there's definitely some ideas that only could happen because of your confluence of backgrounds that make you, you know. And so you're kind of, I think, summoned to have that idea. Like Prince was a select person that could actually realize an idea. Not a lot of people were in a circumstance like Prince where they're able to throw down everything and instantaneously realize a dream, you know. But he built that life where he was capable of playing all these instruments and had a world where he could record at any second and at the snap, at the drop of a hat, anything that he wanted to. And you know, that's not very many people. So
well, that also extends to like other crafts too, right? Like not just music, like even something like just a really fashionable person, you know, you look at their whole outfit, you look at their posture, and you realize everything was thought out, you know, from like the cufflinks to the accessories to the shoes to everything. And or, you know, even I guess the way people cook. And, you know, you could say some people are so thoughtful about it because they're so into it.
It's true. But I mean, what part of the ideas are generative? Like, is there a part of what you do or what you think that is your own? Like, have you created anything?
I think the idea itself is just like maybe more formless than we anything we can imagine. But then once it enters your psyche and it takes an image, it takes a smell, it takes a taste, that's when it, I guess maybe you could say it becomes yours, you know? I don't want to take people's creative output away from them. You know, like I think it is very much an individual feat of creation. I just also feel like there's something else at work, you know, outside of us too, that just kind of comes in and we become a channel to make the most, like, I guess, efficient output. Or I don't want to say efficient. It sounds too mechanical.
No, but that's a big relationship between, like, right now when we talk about AI and people will say, well, it's not really making generative art.
Yeah.
It's just, well, isn't it though? And aren't we? And what do we mean by generative? And are we just mixing ideas together to make something? Because even if that's all we're doing, that's more than having a radio signal hit your head. that's still generative, you know, if you're mixing things together and it's creating a new thing. So
Synthesis, we should say, right?
synthesis, synthetic, yeah, synthesis, right.
I mean, all life is synthesis, really, just like product of two things coming together to create something new. Or two or more things, I should say.
Like, what is the difference, Kurt, between yourself and an AI creating a piece of art? Are you generating art, or is it just getting an idea sent into its transceiver? Like, what is the difference really in terms of generative?
You might really like AI. I don't know. It's just like, not to be insulting. I just like, I feel like AI is just at this, to me, it's an incredibly boring topic at this point. It's,
I only use it for like asking what a human is, though. Like, what makes an artist or a creative person? Like, what is creative then?
It's, being creative is an inflection of just being part of the monad, you know. That's what it is. I'm not being dismissive, I promise. It's just like, you were given agency, and my assumption is you were given agency by a divine power, and art is an expression of that divine agency. And so it almost seems like AI is just a different categorical experience, unless we treat artificial intelligence as in and of itself an art form. Then yeah, you can make a philosophical argument there, but it's like, yeah, there is a difference. There's like, and there's a great degree to which something changes proportionally to how you engage with it. So typing a few sentences and saying, hey, spit out this song, you have a different attachment to that than someone that's been spending, 400 hours, like dissecting every section of what they're doing within a piece of work. That's not an extreme I go to, but yeah, some artists do that. They get in, they really get surgical about what they are doing, and there's a purpose behind everything that they're writing, that they're creating. Actually, I would think a lot of people probably spend less time, creating melodies than a lot of, classical artists likely did, even though, there's some famous stories of, I think Mozart or some famous person on that pantheon just writing a really famous piece the morning of they were supposed to, turn in their homework to the crown, So there are those stories, but I think
Mozart jammed a lot though too. Like, he was constantly spending all night partying and jamming and making up new music all the time. So he probably had some ideas ready when he did that,
Yeah. So, and that's the other part of it is like, could that person have created that without all the life experiences that led up to that point? And that's to the degree, when you make that argument, it's, to what degree are you yourself infusing your effort and your experiences in your AI creation? I believe you can, but I think, how much of it is it an engaged process? And so, yeah.
Hey, I mean, play Sarah McLachlan. I want this on a t-shirt. I feel like this says a lot about humanity.
Yeah, but that's where we're at now with AI. But, and what you're talking about was like kind of a little more traditional, right? Music did get to a point where, I mean, yeah, all the focus is on the artist, but a lot of these artists were just plucked up by these studios with huge armies of like producers and studio musicians. So it's like, not only, yeah, sure, there's the artistic aspect. Like, could you say that pop star could write those songs if they didn't go through what they... Probably not. But then there's also the argument now where it's, could they have produced that song with such high production quality and distributed also to like millions and millions of people and shoved down their ears? Because I think, like, aside from, it's probably the fault of the market or capitalism, I guess you could say, how music has become commodified to the point where people forget the music we're taking in. It's not like cocaine. It's more like crack. It went through a process of like multiple phases of refinement to get us addicted to it. So it's not like we're like chewing on the coca leaves from like, the natural rainforest of where music grows. No, it's like, this is some highly refined, highly polished product that it's designed to get you addicted, and you could overdose on, like, so, we shouldn't forget that aspect where maybe one of the appeals of AI, it kind of lets you bypass the gatekeepers of that element, the production element, the business end, where it's like, now I don't have to deal with like go through these producer reps to fucking try to get my hands on resources. Now the AI will do it. Now what? You know, kind of like getting in their faces a bit, you know?
Dude, since 2010, music's been so weird. I mean, it's just, I've got a feeling, you know, all that weird music that they created that was all just like, I don't want to be too reductionist or disrespectful, but it's advertisement based, you know, energy manipulation to make you feel a certain way, to party, to lift up your cup and drink, all these kinds of songs, right? And they feel so empty, kind of like certain pop music in the 50s, you know, like the in between rock and roll and pop music that they had in the 50s, where they taught you to just really purchase things, you know, just buy things.
But that's why I like the way I'm using it now, because like now I could make the shit that sounds like that the you know, the sonic elements that makes the average user be like, oh, now I'm gonna like listen like to a drone about lifting up my cup and throwing my hands in the air. Now I could look on Twitter about like, you know, people talking about, oh, now you have to choose between a spiritualist being a schizophrenic, just that. And I'll expand that tweet into an essay using that same voice and attitude to say, all right, now let's convert that into a song. So now people could hear like, I guess, pop quality music, but what's the message that's being fed into you? It's like serious shit. You know, it's like giving the voice to the people that would normally not get a voice in the pop music sphere, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And Blueberry's saying AI music's better than mainstream music, like 100%. Not because there isn't good music out there, but because mainstream doesn't make any money off of good music. That's not something that is valuable to them. If they want market saturation, then they have to focus on something other than good music. You know, and this is true about most products that we're seeing in this world, is in order to sell something for more than it costs to saturate it to as many people as possible, it has to be something that very few people like, but everyone will tolerate, right? In a low risk.
I imagine I'm really naive to the club scene. I imagine it's a hellhole right now. Like people cannot be enjoying themselves in this environment.
Well, it's like any other music scene. You know, you got your big mainstream crowds like nightclubs, and then you got your small little raves of the basement kids, and you know, they all do what they do. I think people go to those things to experience like high energy, and that everyone's kind of like syncopated with the beat.
Dude,
it creates like a high in itself. I think it's like a kind of like a trip.
Yeah, I remember being this is years ago now, but I remember going to a show in LA, and it was Gautier was there, and we were doing a video projection, and I left and I saw that song make a music video, and I was like, oh, I saw that live, okay. But then the video was like artistic and people liked it, and then I went travel. Every country I was going to, that song was becoming more and more popular in that country, until finally I was in France, and there was at like a nightclub, and there was like didn't have to cut me off. Like with all this electronic beat behind it. I was like, oh no, man. There's no escaping it. You can't escape it at all. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, music is wild now. I don't want to like give like a strong feeling one way or another, but I do like observing it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, but it does feel like, you know, the saturation thing, like they'll try to saturate a product as much as possible. So like making music that's experimental and less, you know, marketable, that's not that, you know, it's going to make better music. But
well, let's say you're an electronic musician, right? I mean, there's the aspect where as a DJ, you know, what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus more on DJing, or are you going to focus on producing like all your individual tracks yourself, which takes a lot of time, you know? And then you also have to go on your touring circuit. So you're probably going to hire producers who know your shit. And then they say, all right, I need this many tracks for this tour. Now, suppose like as an average bedroom producer, you're not going to have the resources to be able to like facilitate that. So you're probably going to just get caught up like playing, you know, maybe like little gigs at bars, and then, you know, producing like whatever you can, despite taking months to produce a single song. Now you could bypass that. So then now what can you focus on? You have your pool of music. You have like a 2-hour set. You could probably get other DJs down and focus more on throwing events. Then you create your own scene. And then that's kind of what drives like, you know, movements and trends at the end of the day, is like being able to facilitate like large things. And the hard part as a producer is like, what are you going to focus on? Making music, the music, or are you going to focus on throwing these events and throwing shows, you know?
Kurt, do you
Now
do
like
many
with
shows?
AI, yeah.
Kurt,
Sorry.
you write a lot of music, but do you do many shows? I forget.
No, I don't play in public. It seems like we live in a really bad environment for people. And no, I've taken a very long time on any sort of recent projects, much more than before. And well, you get something different when you have time to reflect and you have time to meditate and really try to infuse it with something different. Because like I don't know, I feel like for me personally, like I was just like in a way spamming a lot, but like you can spam stuff creatively in a creative manner. It'll just be, and it isn't bad, but like what if you're looking for a different type of good? You can't just like keep on doing the same formula of like, oh, I'm just going to sit down, force myself to try to come up with like a great melody or something like that. Like it's at some point you have to step outside that boundary. And of course, life, the bigger plans or bigger important things in my life have also contributed to that, of course. I'm no longer a student loan debt slave, so that's nice. And yeah, so the growing question is like, what's how do I infuse love into the world, and how do I infuse love into the world and into my life, in a world that seems like it's kind of starving on that end of things. So yeah, I try to incorporate that, I guess, into what I'm doing. And I think part of loving the world is letting the pieces fall how they may to some degree, but also choosing to have action that I guess gets revealed to you that is a loving action, whatever that may be. So maybe my art will reflect that after a while. But yeah, maybe I'll actually release something, even though I know that there's always a dimension of things that everything that we do is frivolous in the aspect of that we live in a truly spiritual world. And so it's like, is your soul in the correct spot? Are you doing, that spiritual alchemy within yourself and within the world? So everything you do in your music products can incorporate into that, of course, but it's important not to get caught up into the materialistic aspect or clout chasing aspect of it as well. So it's just what it is.
I think what people underestimate a lot is the power of consistency. Like if you have an idea or if you do a thing, it could be music, it could be working out, it could be martial arts, it could be art. Like, a lot of people will focus on one piece at a time, and this is it. I'm going to put all my energy and everything I am into this one thing. Whereas I think one of the more powerful abilities as an artist and to adopt the identity is to say, I could do this every fucking day. Whether it's I could make a painting every day, I could produce a song every day. And you can't do something every single day unless you actually like doing it. But there's a power in that. So it's like, because what does that do? It reflects the cosmos. I mean, if there's one thing we could say like is consistent throughout all of reality, is that patterns matter, is that patterns are the driving mechanism behind like everything we take in. So if you could reflect that with your craft, it's like, don't just say like, oh, I want to be an artist because I have this one dream. Like also think of it like think of a way to be able to do it every single day. Because if you could do something every day, that's going to create more change in the long term. And that's like delayed gratification. So it might not sell, it doesn't sound sexy, but personal experience, the most profound changes and beneficial changes in my life came from like that one little thing that I schedule every day in my bullet journal and I do religiously, whether it's journaling or working out or doing the weekly podcast with Andreas. Like consistency is where it's at, I think. Like be the pattern, manifest the pattern.
Give or take a few like month-long hiatuses. My bad. But yeah.
Yeah, the consistency is the key.
It's true. Consistency is really good most of my life, except for certain moments of wild instability. Like sometimes go through like a good 60 days of like, whoa.
Well, I will say it's like there's what was that? I think you could observe in nature how like one drop of water on a rock does nothing, but over time, drop after drop after drop after drop, it's going to drill a hole in it. So
Mhm.
think of it that way. And also this reflects the virtue of the gods, because what do gods have? Nothing but time. So a lot of their power comes from their ability to outlive everyone. Patience, the divine virtue.
Yeah, patience is really good. A lot of the time, if you try to rush something, it won't work. I've noticed that sometimes you have to, if you're insanely stressed out, I have to finish this by morning attitude, that you probably should just go to bed and then do it tomorrow. I mean, I hate that, but several times with Arch Linux, that's been the truth anyway, you know?
I mean, I was saying before, it goes so overlooked because it's never the big things you could repeat every day. Like I can't go on a spiritual shroom trip every fucking day. But however, what I can do is do a little journal entry every day. Or I could do my little workouts every day, you know, like those things. And the small things that you repeat every day and can sustain every day, like that creates, I think, like more expansive changes in the longer time frame.
Yeah, what are the most important things to do every day? Or can you, I mean, it's a
Stretch.
lot. Yeah,
And
stretch.
stretch and gratitude. Practice gratitude. Make the first thing you do when you wake up just thankful to whoever God you pray to, I guess, or thank yourself, thank your soul, thank your spirit. Thank you for this for this new day.
While stretching. All right.
Yeah.
So from now on, every time you're stretching, you guys are going to be being grateful. Try to associate gratitude with stretching.
I mean, that's so California, right? What do you think those sun salutations are every day? Like, it's not just ridiculous, trendy nonsense. Like, they do get some benefits out of it, you know? Like,
dude, when I was a kid, so I used to want to do yoga, but I didn't do yoga for years until I was like 10 or something. But like when I was little, we did junior lifeguards. And then I went to do yoga. I was like, oh, this is going to be complicated, isn't it? I'm going to have to learn all this stuff. And then I started doing like, wait, these are all salute the sun and all. We've been doing yoga in junior lifeguards every day for years since I was like 4 or 6 years old or something. So, you know, yeah, you can, it's embedded already, like already trained in you to do yoga. But
yeah. I don't ever want to be a person to say, to set your patterns, you know, to be like, you have to work out every day or you have to eat right this every day. No, I'm just saying, like, be mindful that like the thing you do every day, we are what we can't stop doing, essentially.
You sound like a butthole sunner.
Me? I've never sung my butthole, but I hear good things about it. I heard
I don't know if you ever saw that joke, Andreas, the butthole sunners, where you aim to take in the end.
Butthole Surfers, another band. But...
Butthole Surfers. No, you try to get all the I guess spiritual energies from the rays of the sun.
Yeah, you mean actual like what's it called? Where you perennial sunning, where you tanning, where you get sunlight in your anus. Yeah. That was a big thing on Base Day F because Adam Krigler was talking about it for some reason. He was he's like, this seems weird. I don't know what to think about it. And then his mom came in the chat, was like, I've been doing it for years. And he's like, all right, thanks, Mom. In front of all my friends. Why don't you just
nothing like sunbathing my asshole. What a feeling.
Honestly, the most religious thing I do every day probably is just journaling. Like that's it. Like I think like if everything daily practice I do falls apart, I think the journaling is like the one thing I probably have to do.
Isn't kind of for most people Facebook a form of journaling? Like I feel like that was what that was for, with status updates.
But the thing about like when I'm posting on Facebook, like I'm doing it knowing that people are probably going to see it. Whereas if I'm like journaling just about current events, my body, my mind, and my emotions, I know like there's no point in lying. You know, I might as well just be frank, at least with myself. You know, if we all lie,
there's this whole other thing where you get so few views because of the algorithm that it feels like no one's seeing it. So it is like journaling again, you know.
True.
You're trying to find a balance there.
I guess that's why it's so popular, right? I mean, it is kind of like public journaling, which is what blogging was. Blogging had an appeal, right? This is my journey as a fashion designer. This is my journey as a startup CEO. Like, it sounds boring, but the journey itself is what it's about, right?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, a lot of people don't like this idea, but we're doing this for the next artist's audience, and the audience isn't going to be human, you know, the same way the artist isn't going to be human anymore. Like we're basically training in a synthetic audience to emerge. And so AI is built around learning. So we're making podcasts that AI is going to learn from more, because AI will be able to watch all of these videos in like a single minute, just watch every Xirtus video that ever was, and hopefully get something out of it, right?
To be honest,
crazy.
I still treat like people with no views who keep posting, like I still treat those with like kind of like as artifacts, future artifacts, right? I like to think that
Yeah.
after I'm dead, someone will be able to look back at our era of posting and be like, what
Right.
the f- are those people
Once
on?
I'm dead and they can make way more money off of me, then they'll,
You
then
know,
they'll
like
use the content.
I like to, you know, so in a sense, like even like people shit posts that nobody reacts to, like I would internally honor it, be like, you know, someday I think maybe like someone's gonna see that long after that guy's dead and be like, hey, I feel that.
Kurt, do you have things you do every day? Do you think of like there's valuable thing like besides stretching and being grateful?
I pray. I do a ritualistic prayer.
Really? I'm curious about that.
It's more of like the greater invoking ritual of the pentagram. Yeah, basically. But yeah, you're saying like the 4 different names from the Sephirot, I guess. You know, Ate, Malkuth. I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm one of those white people mispronouncing Jewish names. Ate, Malkuth, Vegabra, Vegadula, Lealum, Amen. You know, that whole thing.
Interesting. When did you get into that? Really interesting. I didn't know you did that. That's cool.
In human time forms about 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago, you started like chanting the different parts of the Sephirot. Really?
I guess so.
Huh. And you're like thinking about the different parts of the Sephirot. That's cool. I'm trying to think now, like if I can, because like I feel like I've seen you change over the last 2 years. So maybe I wonder if that's like a big part of it, or
probably. And it's just like I don't know. I'm also getting older, and it's
me too, buddy.
I think we live in a society that's really in a crisis for meaning, you know, and so I think really the answer is to turn to the occult for a lot of people, and I think we lived in a construct where for a while it was like, well, mainstream Christianity puts all the occult as, you know, devil worship, whatever, which I'm finding out just isn't the case. It's like I feel like Christians are really, really ignorant of even the origins of their own religion, and so you have to try to expand your understanding of Judaism. So one thing, just in the first 10 minutes of reading, you know, the Manly P. Hall book, what I found out was it was a really interesting correlation that I never realized before. And so, like, when Jesus died, they pierced his side, and supposedly both blood and water came out of his side, which is supposed to be, you know, at least symbolic, whatever. But in the same way, you can say Jesus' side was pierced, from where was woman created according to the origin story? Woman was created from the side of man. And then often it can be interpreted that women or woman was created from a less valuable substance. Like, oh, it was just the output of man. But no, that's a huge symbolic parallel. Like the whole birth of the church and the birth of redemption came out of Jesus' side symbolically. And so you can't, that seems like a really wild thing to say. Like, in a similar way that Adam's side was pierced so that could give birth to the creative force of woman. And also there was a metaphor about the use of the word dirt. So Adam was created of dirt. You could interpret dirt as being less valuable than created from flesh. But even there's another interpretation as well, as like the old Jewish words for dirt in the creation of the Bible. They were more meant to mean elements that were just taken from the 4 corners of the universe.
Yeah, like stardust, right?
Yeah,
you could say like stardust just as easily. Exactly.
Right. So there's so many incredible things out there that can transform your opinion. So, but I haven't read as much as Colt. I've been trying to read at least 10 pages out of 100 Years of Solitude. And this is the book I have right now. And I've read it 6 times, but it's Spanish. And that was my effort to become more fluent in Spanish. And languages are just hard. Let me put it that way. But I understand basically the general concepts of the book, and I can talk about what's going on. And I think I've had realizations in this book that there's no English book that can kind of compare to, you know, the Spanish realism movement. So Not to rant too long. I'm sorry if I'm ranting, but
No, I was just thinking about like realism because Soviets have a lot more realism than American than English literature.
yeah.
I mean, like around 19th century, late 19th century, I think we have a good realism in theater, but
Mm.
yeah, it's non-comparable. Spanish is like in Cordoba, like it's insane. Like the realism literature's, yeah, it's like it's a thing for sure. I agree.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Like one of my favorite metaphors that the book uses, but I call it a metaphor, but they might not say that in Spanish. But there's a room in the book, and the room basically holds itself true, or it stays there for like 100 years. And the book isn't really about the room. The room is just kind of like a side aspect of the book. I would say it's related to the general theme, though. There's this character Melquiades. Melquiades, I think I'm saying that right, and he's related to this mysterious person in the Bible. Melquiades kind of sounds like this
Like
mysterious
Melchizedek.
Yes, that one. And in this room, essentially, time stands still, and this room contains scrolls that need to be deciphered to fulfill the prophecy of the Bondia family. And yeah, from that aspect, it's really interesting. But some people don't see the room for what it is. Some people see the room aging, but other people actually see the room in its pristine condition in perpetuity. And it turns out, one of the main characters, he goes crazy because he spends time in that room making discoveries, and he eventually thinks that it's the same day over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day. It keeps being Tuesday, but the thing is, time is actually time is freezing essentially within that room specifically, and that's why people think he's going crazy, but he actually isn't crazy. He ends up speaking Latin. His default language becomes Latin, and he speaks completely in fluent sentences that make sense. But everybody just assumes that he's insane, and he pretty much dies tied to an oak tree. Yeah, I believe it's an oak tree. Which now I'm realizing oak is highly tied to a lot of mysticism and symbolism and past rituals like the Druids. What is a mistletoe? A mistletoe actually, I guess, isn't its own plant. A mistletoe is a parasitic growth off of an oak tree specifically. And you have to climb the tree and cut off the mistletoe from an oak tree to perform your rituals, or to, we know very little about the mistletoe. Why do we kiss people under the mistletoe? Well, it's at least in part from that age. Yeah, there's a lot. It's a mind fuck. It really is a mind fuck. So, I'm about to end my rant, I promise. But yeah, there's a lot to learn. I'm gonna really put some time into this book, and I was going to go somewhere with that, but I can't even remember now. But yeah, that's my little spiel.
Mistletoe. All right. Well, dude, it's cool. It's been like a while. I'm glad we're gonna do this again next week. It's been a minute. I'm sorry about that. It's been a little bit of a jumping around, but things are kind of getting stable now. So
I also want to say one thing. I noticed in the chat some people mentioned Arc Raiders. Yo, fucking shout out! I love that game. That game is sick. I started playing.
Does it work on
It's
Linux?
sick.
Like, I haven't looked into, like, does it have anti-cheat, or is it okay?
It does have anti-cheat.
Yeah, but Arc Raiders, does it work anti-cheat in SteamOS on Steam Deck?
Yeah, I set up a Twitch account and everything, so I'm going to start streaming. I figure as a way of outreach, because like I've been spending a lot more time indoors, and I just want to play video games now. So I'm going to play some Arc Raiders and stream it.
Arc uses easy anti-cheat, EAC, which is not Windows exclusive kernel, so it works fine with Steam.
It's cross. I'm pretty sure it's cross-platform too.
Yeah, that's cool. It's such a sad thing. Some of these games that are like reliant on Windows kernel for no reason, like Fortnite, for instance. Like Fortnite's weird because Tim Sweeney says he wants to have Fortnite on iOS and Apple devices because Apple's so restrictive. They should be forced to accept Fortnite. But then he goes and won't make Fortnite. He disables Fortnite from running on Linux, requiring a Windows kernel. It's like freaking crazy, man. Yeah, I don't
Too much
understand.
money in it. Too much money in it. I like Arc Raiders because I think it's a lot of it has like a social experiment baked in, where there's like a proximity chat. You know, like you apparently like from what my experience is like you get more chill experiences just playing solo. Less people are aggro, and you're more like likely to just be like, "Yo, please don't shoot me. I gotta get the fuck out of here." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, dude, come on in the elevator." It's really fun. It's a nice experience.
I think I have it already because I got that Game Seal. Have you seen Game Seal? There's like this website like deals.gg, and you can find like different sites that sell activation codes and stuff. So I got like Arc Raiders for like $6 or something.
That's dope.
Yeah, but like I haven't played it yet. So if you want at some point, isn't it
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an online thing? We should do it.
Yeah,
when we
yeah,
get
I'm
to play
down.
Arc Raiders.
And stream it because it's a
Yeah.
really fun. Yeah, it's a fun game to stream and watch too. Because like you just get up into all sorts of hijinks, and it's great.
Dude, sounds good. Yeah, okay. So Kurt, do you have any sentimental like advice for the men and ladies watching this right now? Transgendered people as well. Anything you want to say?
Oh my God. Oh wow.
I'll be right back. I gotta get water.
Well, what if I say this? Gender isn't real. Fuck off. No one believe in gender anymore. This is the new liberal movement. Gender itself isn't even real. It's offensive to call people its from now on. That's what we should do. Andreas, I love its. I love its, and the it is Andreas. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Andreas is it. Yeah, no. So just someone said Arc Raiders is like $40. Yeah, it's $40 is not bad, by the way, for games. But I just went to gg.deals is I think the site I found, and then this led me to gameseal.com, and then GameSeal you can get games and stuff. I think this is 20. You can like right now you find it for 24. It's not bad, right? So that's at least half of 40. But if you look, usually different pages have keys for cheaper, and you can get the game for like $20 or $10 depending on what day of the week it is. So yeah, check out GG Deals. They didn't pay me for that, obviously, but I just thought, you know, pretty sweet.
Like Kierkegaard said, it's all of your responsibility to love other people. It's not just this fleeting thing that gets gifted to you from the gods. It's like you already have the power to express love towards other people, and we have shirked our responsibility, and I think our society is going to decline and continue to shirk that responsibility. And this is just your fair, like, here it is, you can choose to do this, and so don't blame me if you don't.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for anyone who thought that. You're right. You're probably better off just giving as much money as you can to like the team that makes the game. Sorry, yeah, agreed. But
well, only because they seem to listen to you. You know, they listen to their player base, which is cool.
Yeah, it seems cool. Yeah, I mean, it's on sale on Steam. Cool. Go 30% off, $22 in Canada. Yeah, that seems legit. There you go. See, it's on sale on Steam directly. So just do it. All right, whatever. I don't care. I'm just saying. All right, Chris, do you have any closing statements until next week?
Yeah, it's been so long. Glad we got to do this again. I hope we get to do this next. No, it's all good, man. I've been kept busy myself, so hopefully we could do more cool stuff this year. I mean, I'm like getting super powered with AI, with just all sorts of production shit. So maybe I could incorporate more of that for you guys. And thank you for watching, and thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Andreas. You guys are the best.
It's a good time to be alive. I love you all. We'll see you guys next week. And I think we have some more shows this week. So, you know, stay tuned. Welcome back. Peace.
There's philosophy leaves.